Good morning to everyone. Today we invited to Ukraine Crisis Media Center the key actors in what happened yesterday when the decision was approved by the regulator on the increase of tariffs for hot water and heating. It was a technical decision mainly, and vast response has already been gathered. How in this situation as it is, how people, consumers, individual consumers can control the components of the tariffs. Yesterday the data was made public, how the average weighted tariff was increased almost twice, and 95% of this increase, this is gas price, and this is the newsletter bulletin developed by NGO OPORA. Here are the data presented by the Commission, by the regulator, about the components of the tariffs. It is hard to say that it is easy to explain to ordinary individuals. That is why we invited experts to elucidate the tariffs content, their composition. It is an easy structure of talk. My name is Mashlyakivskyi. I am deputy head of regulating relationship for heat supply. Yet the increase in heating tariffs is 95% on average in Ukraine. This information has already been made available on the website. It was published there on May 5th, 20 days before the decision. For the period, the comments could be sent by consumers. It was the period for gathering and incorporating the comments, but there were no comments that could influence somehow on the tariffs. Some materials, technical materials, are available on our website, and comparative information with other countries, and potential ways of energy saving measures which individuals can apply, and energy suppliers, they also should provide such information, and in the bill they should show dynamics of this individual's consumption in accordance with the law. That's all in brief. Well, I am a deputy head of the Department for Regulation of Relationships in Centralized Water Supply. Commenting the situation in the water sector, the increase in tariff is expected, but it will not be so big. The increase will be by 15% as it is expected, and this depends on the change in electricity price. Very big influence is due to the changed volumes of consumption, because consumption fell during the previous year. That is why the tariffs are reviewed, and the review is going in a very smooth manner, and we prevent any extra components, any odd components from getting into the composition of tariffs. Here we should understand how tariffs are set. What is tariff setting process? What is a tariff in denominator? There are salaries and other costs, for example, bank account costs and meter checking costs, and in the denominator. In the numerator, the real price. So how the community can influence the tariff? We have the law about local self-governments. In accordance with this law, annual plans of utilities activities are approved. This figure is in the numerator. Annual plans, they are approved by local self-governments and they are used in the tariff formula. 30% of costs, our costs, they goes for electricity, which we consume. It is compared with general production costs, which are also approved by self-governments, local self-governments. All water suppliers were to approve their normative costs, and they did so. The other component in tariffs is salaries of our staff. This is about 35% of tariffs. The manning table is approved by the municipality, and we review the number of staff which is included in tariffs. We provide recommendations how to optimize the number of staff, but the local self-government's role is very high as well, because they are close to such enterprises in place, starting with top managers who also have leverages to influence this component. The other components are taxes, and then technological costs such as fuel and chemicals to treat water. The main things are staffing, which is approved, annual plan of our operations, which is also subject to approval by the municipality. And I have one question. When we look at this slide, we can see the rest of course and the salaries components. As citizens of some city or some district receiving services from some company, where he or she can get the breakdown of course. If this is not available, if such information is not available at the website where he can get it, detailed breakdown is available in the structure of tariffs, which is on our website, and in official Liga edition, where the detailed breakdown is demonstrated. This is depreciation costs, for example. More detailed breakdowns may be sought from the enterprises themselves, but I do not recommend to abuse this right to overuse it, because there are very many small components in the tariff, and provision of such information is time-consuming. I would like to add there is existing legislation which is in effect, and licensees are obliged, according to the legislation, within 5 days from the date of receipt of the claims seeking to decrease the tariff. They should provide information in mass media within 5 days, including at the website of local community and their own site, and in printed publications, dated the resolution number 101. So this is a strict requirement of the regulations. During this period, the citizen may influence the situation if if his allegations or his ideas are well grounded. The costs have been corrected in accordance with the change process to natural gas and electricity. This information is also available at the enterprise, so only experts can provide elucidation of this tariff. That is why I invited the OPORA NGO experts as well.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Yesterday's decision by the Commission that regulates the communal services market, this decision is taken in its nature because we have no other options for the heating enterprises. So 70% of their costs for producing the energy, this is the fuel costs. So what can we say about it? If people do not pay for this, the users, so it means that this money should be taken from the budget, either from the budget or from producers. So we return to the discussion about subsidies, but this ideology, and the government decided to reject this ideology. And this decision was correct, and it will reduce corruption in energy sphere, as there is a single price for gas and heating energy for all the categories of users. And yesterday, at the meeting of National Commission, we saw that an enterprise abused the selling and redistribution between different categories of users. They abused the prices, and this was the source of corruption. But there is an issue that the users will require quality communal services and will ask a lot of questions. There is no simple answer for this. We are speaking about regulation of prices and communal services provided by the subject of natural monopolies or in the markets close to monopoly. That's why no country of the world found out any other algorithm, because in this market there can't be fully market mechanism. That's why there is national regulator. In this case, this is National Commission that regulates the communal services market. That should be an arbitrator that should provide this fair social dialogue and to find a compromise and to establish fair tariffs, analyzing the activities of the enterprises and to establish these tariffs. So I won't incite speculations, but there is no law on National Commission that regulates communal services market, but the answer is there are some populist claims that this work of this commission is not according to legislation. But what is the other option? So next week the deputies will reach agreement and should adopt the law to regulate the activity of this commission. And because now some people say that illegal commission establishes illegal tariffs. And the more important issue is there should be trust to this commission and should be huge, and without public support, any decisions will be questioned. And about expert community, what information can it get from the tariffs? So there are some important components. The first one is buying of these are expenditures for tubes, fuel, and for repair works. And here the task is of the Ministry of Economy and National Commission to force the licensees. I am not speaking about small ones, but they should work through ProZorro site, because we can get information only from those enterprises who present this information. And the task of activists and journalists is to monitor these procurements, because in this sphere, civil society can be more effective than the Commission, because it's difficult to catch every person by hand, and journalists can find these beneficiaries who are owners, and to prevent in this way corruption in procurement sphere. Also, one more component I want to discuss. Experts can influence this, and also users can use it. This is investment component. Investment program according to local government and communal services that should be discussed among the public, and there should be a procedure of public hearing in each territorial community, and after this it should be adopted by the session of the city council. And this procedure is usually abused, and if the community is active, so they can influence on the formation of this investment component. It means that people will know about the works and how well the system of heating supply improves. And here we should monitor and to follow these investment programs. I want to say that in investment programs, 100% there are meters included. We pay by our tariffs for the meters, and the task of community and experts and users to demand from enterprises that they should provide a schedule of establishing the meters. And we address to different enterprises that supply water, heat, gas, and we asked them to provide schedule, and they provided the schedule only in Kiev. Other enterprises say this is commercial secret. But according to the law, they are obliged to do this under law on access to information. We carried out monitoring in 17 cities, how they publish information according to the law, on the draft law, 2505A, about the access to information, and they publicize the same information that that is presented on the Commission site, and not maybe in a good format, but detailed. Everything is provided, and this is called the decision of the Commission on establishing tariffs for licensee, and there is a detailed breaking down of data, and also there is an investment program attached, and you can see it. And the head of the Commission promised, and it should be verified, is there are reports about monitoring of the resultative of these investment programs, but during for 2015 there are reports on completing these investment projects. So this is a breaking down, a very detailed one, and experts can monitor the situation, and it requires time, because if there is open access data, so we could do it automatically to make some graphs, some analysis. But we have information, and enterprises, they make public information and information program. This is about only 20%. They present a figure, and they say that they plan to establish 10,000 meters. And when they report, they say they plan, for example, to spend million hryvnia for this. So in the report, they show that they spend 900,000. So this information is not enough. That's why the task, I would say, this is the question of National Commission to influence in the framework of its obligations, that they should provide more information and licensees should publish it, and to provide access to this information, because users, they need information when in their house the meters will be replaced or some heating lines will be repaired, and so on and so forth. So these are the main components. As of today, they can, the civil society and simple users can influence. So more attention to the bodies of local government, because I won't repeat, but they nominate the heads of these enterprises and they influence their schedule of work. And we should see the number of people, what salary they get. And they also adopt the plan of the work of the enterprise. So, of course, there is huge role of National Commission, but for work with local government bodies, there is a place and opportunities for their work. I want to add, there is a myth that tariffs are increased because of big profits, but this is only an investment component. It is for investment projects. There are no expenditures, other expenditures in the profit. Maybe some users think that they abuse it, but only profit is the source of funding investment projects. And the Commission also carrying out the task of the government. We say that there should be meters, as the previous speaker said, in 2 years, and because of the investment projects, we recommend licensees provide meters, and there is 30%, and now there will be 80%. So it means that the users will pay only for the service they got, whether it is quality service or not, but they will pay only for the service itself. Quality is regulated by other documents. And the main focus is on the meters, and till the end of the year there will be 80% of establishing these meters, and Commission every year after year passed, they compare the plans and the completion of this plan. If these funds are not used, then they go to the investment program of the next year. They do not disappear. So the user paid for this or will pay. They were in the tariff. That's why these funds, they will be the source for investment project for the next year. That were some measures that were envisaged by the program. So I would like to highlight one more component, and it is difficult to control, is the losses that are out of norm. So there is no such a component in the tariff. As Dmitry Solomka said, that we calculated on the norms, and the losses also, they are according to the norms, they are calculated according to the documents, but sometimes half is lost. So we made monitoring and we made some sampling with Mr. Mashlyakivskyi. We had enterprises where 90% are factual losses, and they say that there are some norm losses, but there are facts, according to the facts, especially when it concerns water, the losses are greater. And here there should be serious political decision, because as of today, the enterprises, they require compensation to compensate the difference in tariff. And sometimes it happens so that for these losses that are out of norm, and no one says about it, we should pay it from the budget, a local budget. And as of the 1st January 2016, the sum was about 5 million hryvnias. And as of today, it's even more. But according to different estimates, it changes. But this is big money. And we should solve this issue, what to do with those losses that are out of norm, because we cannot just subsidize them from the budget. Several years ago, 4 years ago, together with journalists, we used the meter, and we tried to find out about the warming of the houses. So who pays for this? Is it included in the tariffs? So extra losses are not included in the tariffs. Until recently, there was some compensation for this, and the difference between expenditures and also production and supply of this. Supply this to the users. So here, I believe that they compensated losses, including extra losses. There was an order developed that we sent to all the stakeholders in order to introduce it, to include this extra tariffs and in the extra expenditures in the tariffs, because this is a problem in the sphere and they exist, and we should somehow deal with that. So we should deal with this issue, and this order envisages partial taking into account the part of this losses under the guarantee of enterprises, and it was envisaged by this order for 7 years to gradually decrease these losses to correspond the norms. So this mechanism was used in energy sphere, and during 10 years there was a resolution of the Commission, and it allowed to decrease from 20% to 10% losses. And in 2014 or 12, this resolution was cancelled because these losses were reduced to normal.
I'm giving the floor to our guests who will ask questions, but Could we expect that on the basis of materials of 2015 we can create outline, for example, for several cities, one from the east, one from the west, one from the center of the country, so that we have statistics for three example cities and provide very simple elucidation. 3 months is a long time. Are there any questions? Sidorov Dmitro, Information Agency Union. I have question to Mr. Solomka. You told that cold water prices will increase by 15% due to the increase in gas prices. This is a forecast, but there are no figures, precise figures. It would be a little bit later because the licensee's documents are being processed. So on the basis of increased tariffs, the licensees will make proposals for new structure of tariffs for cold water. In this center, Alona Babak MP, she made this speech here and she doubted the structure of tariffs, and she announced that she, along with MPs, will form a commission to check composition of tariffs, its components. So do you have some suspicions about the structure of Teplokомуненерго costs and components of tariffs proposed? As for me, I know that Alona Babak is a good expert, and more than 10 years she has been dealing with tariff setting in fuel and energy sector. That is why I think she knows information very good, who set tariffs and how utilities do that. That is why I think it is feasible, it is reasonable to establish such a commission for examination of structure of tariffs. Sometimes we also see that the standard costs included into tariffs, sometimes they look surprising. When you take how much water was supplied and how much water was consumed, you see that the difference between these two volumes is huge. Then this non-revenue water, it should be paid for someone. So these very big challenges remain in place for experts. They are challenges to be dealt by experts, and they remain the water tariffs sphere as well as in the heating service spheres. The work should be should be performed by joint efforts between ministries, government, and utility. There are matters of special accounts where live funds are transferred for gas. At the same time, if we wait now that for some cities we will have a situation with 70% who do not pay money, and only 30% of population will pay, in fact. So where this utility can get funds for modernization? As concern low investment component, as for me, it is hard to say. I can't hardly say why is it so. because I haven't seen many investment programs. This is a systemic issue. Investment programs were used to be annual, and Alona Babak, she emphasized how can we talk about systemic renovation, which require 7 to 10 years if we have annual investment programs. Which investor would like to come to such situation? Well, investors should have guaranteed that if he invest money, that he will receive them back. They will be repaid in some years. And the component we have a calorific value of fuel, we have coefficient of efficiency, and calorific value is 800 units per 1 cubic meter. Normative losses provide for the component 910 hryvnias. We have 874 hryvnias. So the consolidated calculations show that the figures are similar. It may depend on boilers, whether on their efficiency. They were built 25 years ago. The figures are close, and we can talk about exceedances in this tariff. Even if we get 800 hryvnias, this is not so big difference. Then the other answer to your question: investment programs, as usual, they contain such amounts which are, for example, go from depreciation sources or some other sources, local authorities, or some loans could be sources of funding of investment program. Modernization or reconstruction can be performed by contractors or by own efforts of the enterprise. It is hard to implement some project with those funds. We will use this discussion, its recording, to provide it to our mayor's office in Kiev. And the problem was also articulated of the debts for gas of the utilities to Naftogaz of Ukraine, and the question of restructuring the debts, it was placed according to Ms. Babak, they are on the utilities. So the company have debts of consumers. How the utility company can pay debts to Naftogaz of Ukraine? So how restructuring of debts should be conducted? 20 billion hryvnias of debts are declared by Naftogaz. 2 weeks ago, the committee headed by Alona Babak had a meeting where Minister Zubko, he presented the strategy what to do with heating and electricity sector, starting with this restructuring of debts. I didn't find this presentation on some public's website. It is good if it is there, then everyone can understand the strategy step by step. What it started with today in Verkhovna Rada, and last week it should have been voted, the draft 2707, about temporary moratorium on fines and penalties for those debts of heating utilities and water supply utilities to Naftogaz of Ukraine. Naftogaz is declaring that their losses, if there is a moratorium, what they should do then. So yes, moratorium is not the way out. This matter should be addressed and resolved. So the plan of debt restructuring should be adopted. The draft law is in the at this stage of development. The expert community haven't seen this draft law. That is why we can't say whether it is good or bad. This draft law is being developed by the Ministry of Regional Development and by MPs. It seems that it would be submitted by MPs. It seems that Alena Babak will be one of co-authors of this draft law, but I can't give my opinion because expert community have not been engaged into discussion of this draft law. So systemic challenges should be addressed. Liquidation of difference between tariffs. Nothing was said about non-monetized settlements of accounts for the subsidies. This would become critical issue, especially for district heating utilities, because they will lack working assets. And the next matter is shifting to incentives in tariffs, such tariffs that would promote energy saving. So the first question is debt restructuring, and then the challenges become more complicated as we go further. Thank you to our guests. At the end of the briefing, you can talk also of records.